There once lived a poor fisherman and his wife in a crooked little shack by the edge of the sea. The hut leaned to one side as if it were tired of standing. Its roof sagged like an old hat, and whenever the wind blew, the wooden walls creaked and groaned as though whispering complaints about their fate. Every morning before sunrise, the fisherman rose quietly from his straw bed. He would glance at his wife, Ilsebil, who lay beside him with a frown even in her sleep, and then step outside into the cool grey dawn. The sea always greeted him first. Some days it shimmered like glass, calm and gentle. Other days it churned like a restless beast. He loved the sea. It was honest. It gave when it wished to give and took when it wished to take. With his small boat and worn net, he fished day after day. Some days he caught enough for supper. Other days he returned empty-handed, offering only apologies and weary silence. His wife was not like the sea. She was never calm. "Is that all?" she would say when he returned with a handful of small fish. "Is this the life we are meant to live in this miserable hovel?" The fisherman would smile softly. "It keeps the rain out, wife." "Barely," she would snap. Yet he loved her, for he was a simple man with a simple heart. One afternoon, while sitting alone in his rocking boat, he felt a sudden strong tug on his line. The pole bent sharply, nearly slipping from his grasp. "Ah!" he exclaimed, "this must be a mighty catch." He pulled with all his strength. The water swirled, splashed, and shimmered. At last, from the deep blue rose a large flounder, its scales gleaming strangely in the light. But then, something impossible happened. The flounder spoke. "Fisherman," said the flounder in a voice clear and sorrowful, "I beg you, let me live. I am no ordinary fish. I am an enchanted prince trapped in this form. Spare me, and you shall not regret it." The fisherman nearly dropped him back into the sea in shock. You speak?" he stammered. "Yes," said the flounder gently, "and though I could not taste good to you, my freedom would be worth far more." The fisherman was not a greedy man. He had never desired much beyond enough food and a peaceful sunset. "If you are truly enchanted, then it is not my place to harm you." And without another word, he lowered the fish back into the sea. The flounder flicked his tail and disappeared into the depths. The fisherman sat in silence for a long moment. Then he rowed home.
When he entered the shack, Ilsebil looked up sharply. "Well, have you caught anything today?" "Only one flounder," he replied calmly. "Only one?" she said, already irritated. "He spoke to me," the fisherman added gently. "He claimed to be an enchanted prince, so I let him go." Ilsebil sat upright. "You let him go?" she cried. "Did you ask for nothing?" "What was there to ask?" he replied honestly. She stared at him as though he were a fool. "If he could speak, he could grant wishes. We live in filth. You should have asked for something better." The fisherman shifted uncomfortably. "What should I ask for now?" he asked hesitantly. "A proper house," she snapped. "Go back at once and call him." The fisherman did not wish to return, but he loved his wife and feared her temper. So back to the sea he went. The water, once clear and bright, now looked slightly cloudy, as if disturbed. He stood at the shore and called, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, pray listen to me. My wife Ilsebil will have her own way, whatever I wish, whatever I say." The water stirred and the flounder rose. "What does she want now?" he asked calmly. She wishes for a better house," the fisherman said apologetically. "Go home," replied the fish. "It is done." When the fisherman returned, he gasped. The crooked shack was gone. In its place stood a fine little cottage with white walls, bright windows, and a neat garden blooming with flowers. Ilsebil stood at the doorway smiling triumphantly. "See," she said, "was that so difficult?" The fisherman felt both relief and unease. "It is beautiful," he admitted, but deep within him something stirred, a quiet worry.
For a few days, Ilsebil was content. She admired the polished floors, the warm fireplace, and the tidy rooms. But soon, she began to sigh. "This cottage is pleasant," she said one morning, staring out the window. "But why should we stop here?" The fisherman's heart sank. "Wife," he said gently, "we have more than we ever dreamed." "More?" she scoffed. "There are lords and ladies who live in castles. Why not us?" He knew what she would demand next. Once again he returned to the sea. This time the water was darker. Small waves slapped against the shore impatiently. He called out the same words. The flounder appeared. "What now?" the fish asked, his tone slightly colder. "She wishes for a castle," the fisherman whispered. "Go home," said the flounder. And so it was. A grand castle rose where the cottage once stood. Towers reached toward the sky. Marble staircases gleamed. Servants bowed as they passed. Ilsebil wore fine gowns and jewels. She walked through vast halls as though she had always belonged there. The fisherman felt lost in the echoing corridors. Still, she was not satisfied. Soon she wished to be queen, then emperor. Each time the fisherman trudged back to the sea, and each time the water grew rougher. It turned grey, then deep green, then nearly black. Thunder rolled in the distance, but the flounder continued to grant the wishes, until at last Ilsebil became pope. When the fisherman entered the grand cathedral, he could hardly breathe. Candles stretched upward like glowing towers. Golden banners shimmered. Crowds knelt in reverence. And there she was. Ilsebil sat upon a towering throne, dressed in pure gold, 3 golden crowns upon her head. Kings and emperors knelt before her. "Wife," he whispered in awe, "are you now pope?" "Yes," she replied proudly. He shielded his eyes. "It is as if I am staring at the sun." She sat stiffly, powerful and silent. That night he pleaded, "Now be content. Higher you cannot go." "I will think about it," she replied coldly. But she did not sleep. Greed is a fire that never rests. At dawn, she rose and stared at the rising sun. "Why should it rise without my command?" she murmured. She shook her husband awake. "Go to the flounder. I will be ruler of the universe. I will command the sun and moon." The fisherman trembled. That is impossible." "Go," she screamed. He stumbled toward the sea. The sky was black, lightning cracked, waves rose like mountains crowned in foam. He could barely stand, still he shouted, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, pray listen to me. My wife, Ilsebil, will have her own way, whatever I wish, whatever I say." The flounder emerged slowly from the violent waters. "What now?" he asked. "She wishes to rule the universe." There was silence. Then the fish spoke quietly. "Go home." The storm ceased as suddenly as it had begun. The fisherman walked slowly back. Where the mighty cathedral had stood, there was nothing. No castle, no cottage, only the same crooked little shack. The roof sagged, the door creaked, and inside, Ilsebil sat on the same old wooden stool. She stared at the cracked walls in disbelief. "No," she whispered, but it was true. Everything was gone. The fisherman said nothing. He simply sat beside her. The sea outside shimmered once more, calm and endless. And there they remained, living again in their dingy little shack as they had from the beginning. For no matter how much one gains, if the heart is never satisfied, even the greatest throne will feel too small. And the sea, patient and eternal, keeps its own balance.